Hello class, I'm going to show you something else you can do with line strokes which I actually didn't use in any of these diagrams, but I thought it might be useful to show. It's the last bit of information in the style box I haven't gone over, which is profiles. I didn't use it for these set of diagrams, but basically what it can do is when your profile is uniform, it means your line stroke is the same weight all the way across. Pretty simple, and that's what you're going to mostly use. But you can actually change that through various different ways. So take for example, this line's intentional. I have this thin line here and a thick line here. That's meant to represent that this was a train station, and most people are going in this direction. Viewer are going in that direction, and so it was clean. I made it two different lines. But let's say I want to make a line that was thin at this point and thick at this point. I can do that with one line. So I'm going to do that as a representation of this version, even though it wasn't exactly what I did in this diagram. So I'm going to start by making a new layer. I'm going to lock the previous layer. I'm going to call this train path, whatever you want to call whatever layer. And again, that was sort of a red color, so I'm going to come up to a bright red color, keep my fill as empty. And I'm going to start just by drawing a regular stroke. So I'm going to my pen tool, I'm going to click, and if I click and hold, that's how I sort of make it curvy. And I'm going to see where this line goes, something like that. And because I did a dotted line in the last one, we can see that it's coming up dotted. So I'm going to go to my stroke, and I'm going to uncheck dashed, and it goes to a solid fill. And this was a pretty thick stroke, so I'm going to change the line weight as it goes through. But here we go. I just changed it up. So if I have this line selected, I can actually come down here, and there's some predefined line strokes already. So for example, if I just click this one, we can see it goes from thin to thicker to thin to thicker to thin, right? And I could go this one, which is thin to thick to thin. All right, I want to go from thin to thick and not from a 0 point. So I'm going to undo those steps because I sort of have to create my own profile. Creating your own profile is pretty easy. I just need to come over here to my tools, and you want to go to your width tool, which is right here. I'm going to click on this guy, and I'm going to come down to the very end point of my line, and I'm just going to pull it out just like this. Right? And so now I have thick to thin. If I think that's too thick, I can come back and just sort of make it thinner. And so now the line's going thin to thick, just like that. Pretty simple. And I not that I want this in my line, but I could widen this out point here. I could click here and make it skinny. So you can really make all kinds of crazy lines. I've used this before for things like if I have a diagram in perspective and I want a line to follow in perspective, I'll just use this to sort of approximate the vanishing point and things like this. So I have used it sometimes, not a lot of times, but I have used it. And it is a cool sort of interesting trick to do. Now, what you can do, in my previous one I had arrowheads on it, so again you can mix and match. If I wanted to put arrowheads on it, I could come through here and say, let's add an arrowhead on that side, let's add an arrowhead on this side, and let's change the scale of these things because they are way too big. That's probably still too big. Go with that one, and we'll try something like that on that side, and there we go. I've got an arrowhead that goes from thin to thick on one side. Pretty cool tool there.